Our next speaker is the owner and founder of Staats. She's a serial entrepreneur and the driving force behind the success of the leading operations and marketing consulting agency for real estate businesses. As a licensed agent in multiple states, Jennifer has started multiple real estate brokerage. She's managed and trained agents and admins, as well as worked with dozens of brokerages with transaction nationwide. She's got more than a decade worth of experience in her field, and she has a broad knowledge of real estate. But her mission is to improve the lives and the profitability of brokerages across the US so that they can scale sustainably. When she gets the time, you can find Jennifer outside, exploring with her 2 daughters, her loving husband, and many animals. And she is speaking today on owning your dream life. Jennifer, over to you.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for having me today. I'm seriously just so blessed to be a part of these women's journey and like writing this book together in such a short period of time. I feel like all of us have just like really touched each other. And like the fact that I'm even speaking right now, I think is just has a lot to do with like each of you. And you all know who you are because everyone's been helping me with my public speaking. So bear with me. My chapter was on owning your dream life, and I can really say like wholeheartedly that I do live my dream life. And I think each of us have your own dream life in mind. Mine personally is running a 7-figure business from home with my kids and my loving husband with my goats out back. Like I was just out there right before this, like doing something with them, and that's just mine. But I think the biggest thing, like when writing my chapter and really thinking about this and like working with all of the different business owners that I work with, is really understanding that each of us have just different goals in life and like how can we achieve those? Is it making a ton of money, or is it, being a stay-at-home mom? It's so different for every single person. And I'm just so excited to kind of work through this with you. So being intentional is the key to living your dream life. A lot of people say just do it, but if you're not intentional about what it is, you're never going to get where you want to go. Being intentional has allowed me to maintain positivity, reach my goals, experience a lot more clarity, and just being more present and fully owning my journey. I think that was a big one, coming from like being such a shy person and not really like expressing what I wanted in life was hard for me in the beginning. I was kind of going towards the direction that everybody else wanted me to go. And finally, when I realized like what it was I wanted and started working towards that, it made all the difference. Before I started my current company, I was working about 60 hours a week. I was running around with a brand new baby. I was working for someone else. I was underpaid. If I even got paid at all, which was just hard to believe, like my current employer would not ever pay me on time. And I was okay with it for some reason. I was commuting back and forth to childcare. I was just stuck in a never-ending cycle of waking up in the morning to rush to an office where I was building someone else's dream life. And then I would rush back to my husband and new baby just to crash in my bed at night. I wouldn't have called myself an unhappy person because I still was a very happy person, but I just knew there had to be something different for me and my family. So one day, as I was commuting back and forth to childcare, because we were lucky enough to have grandparents that would watch our 6-month-old baby at the time, but it would take an hour each way in LA traffic just to get to where our childcare was. I'm in the car, and my 6-month-old is in the back, just absolutely screaming. And I had this realization that I wasn't on my own time anymore. Previously, I was so okay with just kind of like the rat race I was in. Then all of a sudden I realized like, wow, this is not just my time anymore. This is my daughter's. And that really just like hit me. Like, what am I doing? So every second I was spending at my dead-end job was taking precious time away from my daughter. I wasn't able to like do all the baby stuff with her. I was working all the time. So I asked myself a series of questions that I feel like changed my life forever. So here are the 3 steps I took to owning my dream life, and I hope that you can apply some of the same practices to creating whatever you want for your life. The first thing I did was defining what it was. And that was hard for me because my it is so different from like the norm. And if you, those of you that follow me on social media, I understand I'm always outside with my goats and we off-road and all that stuff. But that defining what that was the very first thing for me. For me, my why wasn't money. I'm not really motivated by money. It's nice. But my why was creating a life where I had work-life balance that felt authentic to me. So for me, my why or it is being able to pick my kids up from school, not being tied to a 9 to 5. I did not want that anymore. I wanted to work less than 30 hours so I could do those things with my kids, like volunteering at a field trip, or just taking time to myself, like working out or doing something like that, which I was not doing at all. And I really wanted to raise my kids in the country with room to play outside like I had growing up. So the most important thing is to remember that your dream life or it will probably evolve. So for us, it totally evolved as we started reaching each of our goals and figuring out what was possible. The next thing I did was created a plan. So how am I going to get to this thing? How am I going to work less than 30 hours? How am I not going to have a 9 to 5? Like, what exactly is that look like? Because it sounded crazy when I was like, this is what I need. So I started creating a plan to achieve those goals. And I started something I already knew a lot about, which was running the operations of real estate brokerages. I had already been licensed in California for years, and I had run multiple businesses. And I'm like, okay, I'm going to do this thing. So first, since I knew I wanted to find work hours, I knew I had to hire. I knew it wasn't realistic to tell myself that I'm going to run all these people's brokerages part-time. I know it's a full-time job. So one of the first things I did was I started hiring and creating systems. So the heavy lifting wasn't all on myself. So my team knew exactly what to do. And that way I could be fully present with my kids. Next, we knew it wasn't reasonable to create a life that we wanted in Los Angeles. Realistically, buying 5 acres in downtown LA was millions of dollars. It just wasn't going to happen. So we decided to move. Well, by moving, I didn't know anyone. So I knew that the services that I provided had to be virtual. So I started providing virtual operations management services. Then I started working on just kind of gaining knowledge about what I was going to be providing. You know, I had been doing this for a while, but I wanted to start doing research. I know a lot of you are probably the same way. I'm like a big research, multiple tab Googler, and I had to really like define what exactly I was going to focus my time on. So I didn't go down the rabbit hole of like getting all these certifications and multiple licenses and stuff like that. So I started organizing like where I was going to be investing education, and then even starting to educate my team. So I would invest in things that maybe I didn't even know, but I would, you know, pay for a teammate or something to go through that training rather than myself, because I know that there's a limit to how much time I can spend, you know, in classes and stuff like that. Last, I had to just get clear on what could potentially hold me back. That was big for me because it's just a lot about learning about myself. I had to look at myself and what I was trying to accomplish, and then I had to identify what that could potentially be. So for me, I quickly identified the fact that I'm a workaholic by trade. I could work all day if you let me, but I know, you know, it's not possible. And I'm extremely OCD. So by hiring, I had to figure out that, or kind of let go about the fact that I had to accept that not everything was going to be perfect. And what that actually allowed me to realize is that by not stressing so much about it being perfect and letting other people do it, I actually realized that a lot of times my teammates do things much better than me. So they actually do things that come back to me. I'm like, wow, I couldn't have ever done anything like that. And then lastly, I started executing on the plan. So, and that's a big one. And I love kind of what Leah said too on the last talk was like, just do it, like execute on it. You can overthink as much as you want, but until you start executing on it, nothing's going to happen. I was super intentional, and I still am, about how I spend my time and energy, because I keep always going back to, I am on my daughter's time. And now I have 2 daughters, so it's like double trouble, but I'm always on my daughter's time. So is what I'm working on worth it? I prioritize my activities that were income producing rather than obsolete. And income producing to me doesn't necessarily mean that it's a big money maker. I wasn't making a ton of money in the beginning, but I kept investing in the things that I knew were going to help my business achieve my goals. So is this going to allow the company to grow? Am I investing in my teammates' time? And that's where I would put my time and effort in. I strategically hired and trained our team, keeping in mind what the goal was. I've always been super slow to grow because I know myself, and I know that I'll shift right back into like my total workaholic tendencies. So if I take on a ton of clients, can my team handle that with me still being able to take Thursdays off with my kids? Like, that's kind of my question, like I'm always going back to what my goals are and figuring out, yeah, that sounds so exciting, I can do all these things, but is it realistic to what I'm trying to achieve? I quickly learned what it was to be like to be a good leader, because we're not only growing my team, we're actually growing the teams of all of our clients. So that was a big one for me. Like, there's so many people that I'm managing across the board. So I was often looking back about how I was treated as a real estate agent, how I was treated as an employee, and making sure that I'm showing up as a better leader than I saw beforehand. This is probably the biggest one for me. I set really specific boundaries with new clients, so they knew that I did not work weekends, because I'm working with realtors. So they instantly think that I'm just going to work 24/7 for them, and that I always take Thursdays off. And the feedback that I got from that was never negative. They actually really appreciated those boundaries. And they actually asked me, can you help me create my own boundaries in my work? And that was big for me, because I was so scared to set those boundaries and tell these high-powered people, I'm taking Thursdays off because I just want to hang out with my toddler. Like, that was it. I just want to wear yoga pants for the day, and I just want to be with my toddler that one day a week for the whole day. Then I set up trainings and systems so there was never any fires to put out, after hours or on weekends. And I trained our team and clients to think ahead and prepare so projects didn't need to be completed at the last minute. That's been really big for us, because especially in real estate, where everything goes on the market probably on the same time, really teaching everyone to prepare, it kind of made it so nobody was really panicked towards the end of the week. And then lastly, I learned how to be comfortable making changes and pivoting often. So if something wasn't serving me or working towards the goal, it was easy enough to pivot. I had no interest in building something that didn't bring myself, my clients, or my team joy. So that's big for me. I've always been very picky about who I bring into my world. And that plan would have never happened without the support I had. My husband, my mom, just friends, and now each and every one of you, and my amazing clients, and the team, and the early realization that I needed to hire to create space for my family. So I'm super excited. I'm actually just launching a hiring remote masterclass, just to kind of give back to people that are working through that, and kind of give some of my knowledge about hiring remotely, because we do a lot, internally, and then we also hire a lot remotely for our teams as well. So I want to leave you with this, because I think this is really big. So without intention, 30 years from now, you're going to be living a life you don't want. And that doesn't fulfill you. Is what you're doing today going to get you where you want to be? And I would love if everyone would just share, what do you see as your dream life? It could be small, it can be big. Like, what do you see doing? I'd love to hear it.
We're so good. Oh, just got so many takeaways. I'm like, that idea of like, if you're living by default, right, instead of design, you're going to end up somewhere you don't want to be. And something you said that I was writing notes, is that often as entrepreneurs, like our superpower, but also our kryptonite is we can see the opportunity in everything. Like you said, I felt a lot of that. I was like, oh, it's my children's time, when I'm like, oh, but I can just answer this thing. So thank you for the reminder of not only living intentionally, but also the boundaries. I think that's something you do so brilliantly that we all can work on. So appreciate that. Thank you, Jennifer.
Thanks, everyone.